And while Christy is pulling up the presentation and the first slide, I will start over. Again, I'm Rebecca Garcia, Housing Manager for the City of Morgan Hill. I'm joined here by some of my colleagues, as well as Debbie Kern from Kaiser Marston. We have Julius Nayanda from House Keys, our below market rate program administrator. We have our Community Development Director, Jennifer Carmen. We have our planning teammates, Gina Polini. I believe Cynthia is on with us, our Deputy City Attorney, and we have also Adam, and hopefully I am not missing anybody. So we're here today because the city is considering modifying its affordable housing inclusionary program to deepen the overall level of affordability of for sale inclusionary units. The city retained Kaiser Marston and Associates to conduct an evaluation of what it would look like if we adopted deeper affordability to the IHO program, inclusionary housing ordinance, and how that would impact the housing in lieu fees. We will definitely have time for Q&A. I want to get to your questions and comments as soon as possible after the presentation. You are also more than welcome to type questions and comments in the chat. Next slide. So a little bit about our process. Staff was directed by City Council to examine opportunities for deepening affordability. Specifically, they asked us to look at low-income opportunities on the ownership piece of the BMR program in hopes of looking for opportunities to decrease the sales prices. KMA prepared a report that summarizes the preliminary findings of their evaluation. This report has been emailed to you, hopefully, and it's also available on our housing website. We will drop that housing website link into the chat. We're hosting this very same workshop at 5 p.m. today. Hopefully we won't have the same technical difficulties. My apologies. We'll be daylighting this report to the Planning Commission on June 8th as an informational item only. We will need to return to the Planning Commission for a formal recommendation. We're still working on a date for that, and we haven't made any determination about what our recommendations are going to be, at least from staff's perspective. We're here today to listen to your feedback on the alternatives that are being proposed. We may return to the Planning Commission on June 22nd for the formal, to get a formal recommendation from them, but we're still working on calendaring that date. So I will make sure you all have an email with the schedule. We'll take a formal recommendation to City Council in either August or September of 2021. Next slide, please. So again, the purpose of today's workshop is to discuss, consider modifying the affordable housing inclusionary program to deepen the overall level of affordability on the for sale portion of the inclusionary program, only on the for sale, not the rental. Our goal here today is to daylight these alternatives and obtain your feedback. Staff has not made any final decisions as to what is being recommended. We're here to listen and learn today. Next slide. The city's current program requires, just a little recap. So the current program requires new for sale residential projects to either restrict 10% of their project if it's a project within the downtown, or 15% of the project if it's a project outside of downtown. The sales prices are at the moderate income sales price. The second option is to pay a housing in lieu fee in lieu of providing the units on site. Council likes to see that the units are built within the project, but we have accepted housing in lieu fees from time to time with council approval. Our inclusionary requirements are codified in Chapter 1404 of the city's municipal code. Next slide. So there are two alternatives being considered. The first is, under the first alternative, the moderate income category would be essentially stratified into two subcategories, with 50% of the units available at prices affordable to median income households. Under the second alternative, the inclusionary requirement would include a component of low income units as well as lower price structure for moderate income units. So under the first alternative, A, we'll call it, it would remain moderate income sales prices. Under alternative B, we would be adding lower income into that structure. Next slide. Specifically, Kaiser Marston evaluated the additional financial cost to new for sale construction residential projects to provide the proposed deeper levels of on-site affordable units. And of course, they evaluated what that would do to the current in lieu fee levels that would occur because of providing the proposed deeper levels of affordability. KMA prepared the report that summarizes the preliminary findings. This report hopefully has been emailed to you. And again, we're going to drop the link into the chat. Next, please. As you are all aware, California Housing and Community Development, HCD, our state housing department annually publishes income limits. This is what we use for our inclusionary program. These are the new income limits that became effective April 26. As you know, we are in a very, very high cost area, one of the most expensive in the country. Quickly going over the moderate incomes, because that's what we currently use for the program. It ranges from approximately $127,000 for a household of one to approximately $239,000 for a household of 8. Next slide, please. This table reflects the current maximum prices for inclusionary units. For example, a 3-bedroom moderate sells for about $651,000, which is at the upper end of the moderate income range at 120% of the area median income. A 2-bedroom BMR is approximately $581,842. Next slide, please. The city's ordinance provides for some projects with approval by city council. I'm sorry, next slide, please. Yeah, there you go. The city's ordinance provides and allows for some projects with approval by the city council to make a payment in lieu of providing on-site inclusionary units. The current in lieu fee is $19.70 per habitable square foot for for-sale projects outside of downtown and $13.20 for projects located within downtown. So while there's several different fees for rental, today we're only focusing on ownership. So again, it's $19.70 outside of downtown and $13.20 per square foot within downtown. Next slide, please. In regards to what is being considered, the overall inclusionary requirement of 10% for downtown and 15% for projects outside of downtown would not change. So we're not proposing to change the 10% and 15%. It's the affordability ranges within those percentages that is being considered to be deepened. Next slide, please. Okay, so diving into what alternative A is a little bit. So alternative A presents 2 bands of moderate income units to be established. The first band would be priced to be affordable to households that earn up to 100% of the area median income. And then the second band in alternative A would be targeted to households earning up to 120% of the area median income. So within this alternative A still, projects located outside of downtown would be required to set aside half of their required obligation as median income units and the other half, or 7.5%, as moderate income units. So again, this is outside of downtown, and it would still remain a 15% obligation. Projects located within the downtown would be required to set aside half of their units as median income units, and then the other 5% as, or half, as moderate income units. So again, the percentage remains 10% downtown. Median income units would be priced at 90% of the area median income, and moderate income units would be priced at 110% of the area median income. Next slide, B, please. Alternative B, so the second alternative is the one that would add a lower income component to the inclusionary requirement. And I should mention, alternative B is not what is being recommended by Kaiser Marston, but I'll quickly go over it anyhow. So this one adds a low income component for projects outside of downtown. They would be required to restrict half of their units to low income households and this is outside of downtown. 5% to low-income households, 5% to median income households, and 5% to moderate income households. So again, the 15% remains the same. Projects within the downtown would be required to restrict 5% of their units to low-income households and 5% of their units to moderate income households. Low-income units would be priced at 70% of the area median income. Medium income units would be priced at 90% of the area median income, and moderate income units would be priced at 110% of the area median income. Next slide, please. To give a few examples of how these alternatives impact pricing of BMRs, which is, I know, incredibly important to you all here today. So under just a couple of examples, under alternative A, the blended average price for a 3-bedroom inclusionary unit located outside of downtown would be about $521,600, which is approximately $129,000 less than the current maximum price for a moderate income 3-bedroom unit. Again, alternative A, blended average price, 3-bedroom inclusionary unit outside of downtown would sell for about $521,600. This is about $129,000 less than the current maximum price for a moderate income 3-bedroom. Under alternative B, again, B is not being recommended, but under alternative B, the blended price for a 3-bedroom inclusionary unit located outside of downtown would be about $435,300, which is approximately $216,000 less than the current maximum price for a moderate income 3-bedroom unit. So B is the alternative that adds low income into the mix. And again, alternative B is not what Kaiser Marston is recommending. Low income units would range from $232,500 for a 2-bedroom unit to about $339,400 for a 6-bedroom unit. Okay, I am going to turn it over to Debbie Kern from Kaiser Marston, who helped conduct this analysis. Deb's going to talk about how the analysis was conducted, the different product types that we used from Morgan Hill, and the approach to calculating the housing in lieu fees. Deb, go ahead and take it away. Hopefully you are unmuted.
I think I am.
You are.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here today to talk about the analysis that we did. And so, as Rebecca said, I just wanted to walk you through the approach that we've taken. And so, what we've done, and it's outlined in our report, is we've used two approaches, really. Well, the same kind of approach, but different databases. One is we looked at all of the units that have sold in Morgan Hill in 2019, 2020, and 21 to date of units that were built since 2018. So these are newer housing product that's been recently sold. And we looked at what the prices of those homes are to get what the market rate pricing is for, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms for new construction. The second approach is that we looked at data that's published on new projects that are being marketed and looked at what the pricing is for those specific projects. So in this graphic here, I'm talking about these examples. So step one is identifying those new developments. So it's new projects, new units that are being built in Morgan Hill. And then the second step is that we estimated the revenues that a project would generate if it was all 100% market rate units. And we looked at both the projects for which we have data, as well as the entire database of new units that have sold in this past couple of years. And then the second step is we looked at, well, if these projects had to have 10% inclusionary units in the downtown or 15% inclusionary units outside of downtown, what would their profit margins be for the inclusionary project? And then we calculated the difference in the profit margins, and that represents the cost of providing on-site inclusionary units. And then for step 5, to calculate the in-lieu fee, we converted that cost to a per square foot cost across the entire project to calculate what that in-lieu fee that would be comparable in cost to providing on-site inclusionary units. So that sums up the approach that we've taken. And so now I'll just walk through an example of the calculation. So next slide, please. Okay, this just provides a summary of when we looked at 7 projects for which there was data, and of those 7, 5 were attached/condo projects, and then 2 were detached single-family developments. So on the attached, these are the projects. We had Madison Gate, Veneto, the Gables, Los Colinas, and Valencia. And so as you can see here, the prices, the average price of these attached projects approximated about $850,000 per unit. And the average square footage was about 1,900 square feet. The average bedroom count was about 3.5. And that was, if you look at the price per square foot, it's about $450 per square foot. And so for 4 bedrooms, the price is obviously higher, about $908,000, but the square footage is 2,000 square feet, which, as you'll see in the next slide, is very different than it is for detached developments. Next slide. So these are the 2 detached projects for which we had data. And as you can see here, the Van Dale project average square footage for these detached was 2,800 square feet. For the Borello Ranch Estates, the average square footage was 4,500 square feet. So they're much larger units than the detached. And this differential was also experienced when you look at all of the units sold in the past couple of years. We had 143 units total sold, and the square footage differential is significant between, attached and detached. So this drives, as you'll see later, we're recommending that the city, instead of having 1 in-lieu fee per square foot, that it have 2 different in-lieu fees, 1 being for detached and 1 being for attached, because the economics are so different for attached and detached. So as you can see here, the average price for the detached in these 2 projects was about $1.7 million per unit. The average square footage is about 3,600 square feet. Average bedroom count was 3.64. We have, you get a lot of units that are over $2 million in these detached units, which is very different than the attached that are about $800,000 or $900,000. Next slide. This is just, I think it's a recap of what Rebecca has already shown, but these are the pricing, the maximum pricing that would be allowed for different levels of affordability. And so as Rebecca indicated, under scenario A, we're assuming that 50% of the inclusionary would be at priced at 90% of AMI, and 50 would be priced at 110% AMI. So the blended average is at 100%, which is median. So you can see that the average blended price for a 3-bedroom would be about $521,600. And then the average blended price for a 4-bedroom would be about $565,000. Next slide. Okay. This is an example of the calculation. This one is showing what the calculation of an in-lieu fee based upon all of the attached homes under alternative A of those 5 attached projects that I had identified in that earlier slide. And so this is for outside of downtown. So that's the requirement. We have a 15% inclusionary requirement. Downtown, again, we have a 10%. So this is outside of downtown, so it's 15%. We're looking at alternative A, so we're looking at only moderate units, but 7.5% of the moderate would be at 110% AMI, priced at 110, and 7.5% would be priced at 90% of AMI. So the first thing was we just structured a hypothetical project. Say it had 100 units. And we used the average bedroom count of 3.5 for that project based upon the complexion of those 5 attached projects for which we have the data. And as you can see, the average market rate unit we're assuming is about 1,885 square feet, which is the average of those 5. And then based upon projects for which we have information on the sizes of affordable units versus market rate, the city provided us with information on projects, and those sizes for attached projects, they range in that the affordables are between 80% to 91% of the size of the market rate units. So for this analysis, we assumed that it was 90%. So as you can see here, the affordable, we're showing that at about 1,700 square feet, which is 90% the size of the market rate. Because again, the city under its current program allows developers to provide affordable units that are equal in size to the smallest market rate, a project prototype that you have with the same bedroom count. But based upon the data that the city has, On average, that's about 90% the size of an attached market rate unit, comparable market rate unit. So anyway, so that's you see there in that left-hand block that we have the average size of 1,700 square feet. But in an all market rate project, you would have 100 units at about 1,885 square feet. And then the price is about $850,000 per unit. We have, for purposes of this analysis, we've assumed that costs, or that the profit margins are basically 10% for a market rate project relative to price, which is a fairly low profit margin. So we have costs that are about 90% of price, and that would be about $764,000. So if you had a 100 unit project, you'd have revenues of about 82.3 million. You'd have costs of 76.4 million. And then the net profit would be about $6 million for that project. We then did another run, assuming that you have affordable units, that you're meeting the inclusionary requirement on site of 15% affordable. So as you can see here, under that scenario, you have 85 units that are market rate units, and you have 15 units that are affordable. The market rate units, 85, will generate revenues of about $70 million compared, and then you have costs of about 65 million, so a profit of $5 million. The affordable 15, the 15 affordable units, given the price restrictions, the average price would be about $543,000. So you'd have revenues of about 7.9 million for the affordable. Costs, however, would be about 10.8. We've assumed, because of the smaller unit sizes of the affordable, by the way, that the cost of construction for the affordable on a per square foot basis would be higher than the costs are for the market rate units. We've assumed a 5% premium on costs for the affordable because they're smaller in size. So, and that's traditional for, as unit sizes go down, the cost per square foot of construction goes up. So as you can see here, the profit on the affordable is you're losing about $2.9 million on the affordable units by themselves. So the sum of those two for that project would be a profit of $2.1 million for when you have inclusionary. So the on-site compliance costs, as we view it, is the difference between the profit for the on all market rate project and for the profit margin for with including inclusionary. And so that is the $5.9 million less the $2.13 million. So you get a profit, a differential of about $3.8 million. That's the foregone profit that's associated with developing on-site inclusionary. So per affordable unit, that's about $250,000. If you translate that, convert it into per square foot across all of the entire project, it's about $20.25 per square foot. And then, or per unit across all the units, is about $38,000. So that would be the in-lieu fee that someone would pay that would be comparable in terms of foregone profit to providing on-site inclusionary units. And this again is for attached homes. And so we've done the same analysis for detached, which is on the next slide. Christy, let's see here. Okay, so this is detached outside of downtown. Again, it's a 15% requirement. And the difference here, as you can see here, that's the bedroom, the size of the unit. So the market rate units are 3,600 square feet instead of the 1,900. In this case, with the detached, based upon the data that the city has on projects, detached products that have provided inclusionary units, the size of the affordable units are relative to the market rate units are only about 75% of the size. So they're much smaller in size. They're still large units, 2,700 square feet in this example, but they're not, 90% of the size. They're only 75% of the size of the detached unit. So that's what we've assumed in this hypothetical example. And again, the cost differential there's a cost differential between the affordable and the market rate. And in this case, because the size differential is even greater, we've assumed a 10% increase in the construction cost for the affordable. So we've done the same exercise. So the market rate project, we have 100 units. In this case, we're showing a profit margin of about $11.8 million for that project. If you were to provide on-site inclusionary at 15%, we're showing a loss of a profit of a minus $740,000 for the inclusionary, with the inclusionary. So the difference between those two is it is a $12.5 million loss in effect, foregone profit. And then so per affordable, that's about 830,000. And then on per square foot basis, it's 34.45. So as it shows, I mean, this is showing that it is, that project with the affordable in this situation would generate a negative profit. So then it would be an in lieu fee. Next slide. So based upon that analysis, and we did the same type of analysis using as a database all of the units that have sold, the 142 units, and looked at detached versus attached. And we've come up with these ranges of the cost of providing the inclusionary units. So for detached of the current, if you were to model just the current inclusionary requirements, given today's pricing and the affordability levels for units, that for detached units, the cost would range about $16.57 to $19.33 per square foot. And for attached townhomes, the cost is much lower because the prices for a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom, regardless of whether attached or detached, is the same. And it goes by bedroom count. So because the sizes of townhome, market rate townhomes are much smaller, the foregone revenues are very different than they are for detached. So the on-site compliance cost for for townhomes would be about $4 to $7 a square foot. Under alternative A, which is where we have deeper affordability, but at moderate levels relative to the current. So remember, the inclusionary is priced at 120% of AMI. Under alternative A, the inclusionary would be priced at 100% of AMI. And under that situation, if you were to provide an in lieu fee that's comparable to the on-site cost, that would range from $21 to $23 per square foot for detached units, or $10.82 to $13.50 for attached townhomes. And this is within the downtown. Alternative B, so that's where we have also low income units. So we have for the downtown, we would have 5% at 110% of AMI, and then 5% at 70% of AMI. So the blend there is 90% of AMI. So then the cost per square foot goes up to $24.44 to $25 for detached. And then for townhomes, it goes up to $15.84 to $18.69 is the range. So next slide. Christy. Oh, well, so now I'm going to turn it back to Rebecca. Now, I guess I just want to
the correct slide?
Well, that's fine. This one is, yeah, outside of the downtown. So outside of the downtown, the prices are the in lieu fees would be higher because you have the 15% requirement, and instead of the downtown, it's 10%. So just to run through that, then if you were to go with updating just the existing inclusionary requirements for current market conditions, the fees for detached we're showing the analysis would be a range of $24 $4.90 to $29 a square foot. For attached townhomes, $6 to $10. Alternative A, the range for detached would be $31.60 to $34.45, and for attached, it's $16.23 to $20.25. Alternative B is much higher. Now, as Rebecca mentioned, that Kaiser Marston is not recommending inclusionary B. We're not recommending anything of these. It's within the context of, if the city wishes to retain the existing inclusionary requirements, then we would say, and if you want the in-lieu fees to be comparable to on-site production, then these would be the fees that you would charge. If the city would like to deepen affordability within the moderate income range, then we are showing that this would be the fees that would be comparable to that inclusionary requirement. Now, alternative B, we've done the calculations, but we also are not, we are recommending that the city not go forward with alternative B, because as Rebecca will present too, is that blended average affordability level of 90% of AMI is deeper than any level, I think, of other jurisdictions in the county. And therefore it would be inconsistent with the current norms, and also the costs are prohibitively high and would, might chill the construction of new developments. So that is why that alternative is, we're currently not recommending that at all. And the other ones we're recommending within the context of what the city's objectives are. Okay, and with that, then I'll turn it back to Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Okay, so moving on to the topic of accessory dwelling units and the differences between ADU and a BMR. Christine, thank you. The city's current program permits inclusionary units to not be smaller than the smallest market rate unit of the same product type and bedroom count. Based on available data, inclusionary detached homes have been in the range of about 1,600 to 1,800 square feet, and inclusionary attached homes / condos have been in the range of 1,400 to 1,600 square feet. Inclusionary units are obviously separately owned, providing ownership opportunities to income eligible households. Accessory dwelling units range from about 500 to 700 square feet, obviously smaller and less costly to build. It's great to have accessory dwelling units. They're very helpful. We always count them in our RENA numbers. We currently do not, they're not one for one in terms of obtaining an inclusionary housing ownership opportunity. They're obviously not separately owned by income eligible households. Because of these differences, ADUs are not comparable to our traditional inclusionary units and do not count toward the inclusionary unit requirement. Next slide. And we're almost done here, and we're going to hear from you all. So just a quick overview, other jurisdictions have inclusionary requirements that range from 12 to 20%, with the majority of them having a 15% obligation within the entire city. Fees range from about $17.82 to $125 per square foot. Affordability levels range from lower income to moderate income. I think Campbell is the only one that I see that has the lower income. And some of the cities do their fees differently in terms of a percentage of sales prices. Next slide. Okay, so the recommendations, as Deb described, in the context of if the city council wants to deepen the affordability, there's two recommendations or proposals, I should say, being considered. The first is to offer the prices based on 90% of the AMI, which would be affordable to households earning up to 100% of the AMI, and 110% of the AMI, which would be affordable to households earning up to 120% AMI. The blended average level of affordability would average about 100% of the AMI, and that is consistent with what other jurisdictions offer. And then the second would be to consider establishing two separate in-lieu fees, one for townhome condos and one for large single-family detached homes, given the obvious difference in unit size and corresponding price. Next slide. If we were to deepen affordability and go with alternative A, it would impact the fee. The current fee for projects that are downtown is $13.20 for ownership, and that would change to $23 for detached units and $13.15 for attached units. So not a big difference on the attached townhome but a bigger difference on the detached. So again, right now we just have one $13.20 square foot fee for projects that are downtown. If we moved to deepening affordability, the recommendation would be to also modify the fees and have two that are sensitive to the product type, detached, attached. And then talking about outside of downtown projects, our current fee for ownership is $19.70 per square feet of habitable space. If we were to move into deepening affordability, the corresponding fee would go up from $19.70 to $34.50 for detached units. And for attached units, it would be from the current level, $19.70 up to $20.30. So I'll just stay on this slide for just a second so you have an opportunity to see it. Okay, next slide. All right, so I think we will minimize the PowerPoint here, pause. There's a small group here, so hopefully we can just go into the gallery view and open it up for questions, comments. You're also welcome to type anything into the chat. I will make sure I copy all of that. Joe, yes, to answer your question, I will definitely email you all the PowerPoint right after this presentation. We're offering this again at 5 o'clock and we will probably have less technical difficulties. So hopefully you all are unmuted. Please feel free to jump in with any questions or comments at this time.
Well, Rebecca, can you hear me?
I can, yes, Dennis, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess I'll start off with some questions or comments regarding the presentation and the analysis. First of all, let me say that Morgan Hill should be applauded for producing housing. It's a small community, but it's been noted by many as a good strong housing producer. Especially when compared with some of the larger jurisdictions in the county. So kudos to the housing staff and the city for keeping on top of that. And despite this disruptions in the RDCS, Measure S, SB 330, the city seems to have continued on with developing housing. I wonder, and I know this came from the city council, so I don't expect staff to be able to dissect the motivations to disrupt what's working, to fix what's working. But this proposal, especially in alternative B, would I think threaten production of housing in Morgan Hill, and push many projects that could be built into a situation where it's not feasible financially to break ground. Already, I think that the assumption that 10% profit is going to be acceptable in the pro forma is a little low, and that the city should take a look at a 15% profit as well, to make sure that we're not, skimming along the bottom of being able to perform project feasibility. The housing element, as we know, is coming up, and it's concerning to see cities and even those several besides Morgan Hill looking at fee increases of this type before putting together the housing element. And we would hope that the city will include these kinds of fees and point these out in the housing element as constraints and recent constraints on the production of housing. With the report, the Kaiser Marston report, the analysis, I was concerned to see the benchmarking with all these Silicon Valley cities. Now, Morgan Hill is a much smaller city. Its land values are much lower. You know, some housing costs are very high, but still lower than cities like Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Palo Alto, Los Altos. Those cities are not good benchmarks for the city of Morgan Hill. And we still should be looking at Gilroy, Hollister, Pleasanton, Livermore, Marina, and other cities of like size and the situation and development situation, so that you can really see what they're charging in terms of in-lieu fees or in housing or inclusionary housing as comparable. And I know at that point, you know, among those cities, Morgan Hill would rate, you know, very strongly, but still we should be looking at those types of communities, because you're not developing like Mountain View, as I say, Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Palo Alto, Santa Clara. Those cities are a much different situation. Like I say, we are very concerned about alternative B, and one of the questions has to be, why would the city want to try to force low-income housing, and I mean by that low-income buyers into single-family homes? I don't see any analysis of whether or not this 70% figure, or even anything below 100%, would be able to qualify and support things like, you know, home repairs, HOA fees, utilities, and other expenses that home buyers or homeowners are saddled with. So, you know, I think that the idea that the city is going to develop 70% or so low-income buyers is misguided, and I think that most developers would be able to say that they aren't not going to be able to, you know, market broadly housing, you know, for sale housing to low-income buyers. So I'd really like the city to take a look at that and understand that that's not feasible, and should be, you know, should be off the table. It's distressing to see these numbers. I mean, you're giving away or you're selling a 2,700 square foot house for $500,000, which is marketed for, you know, 1.5 or above. That kind of disparity, the city should be charging in lieu fees and building or trying to build multifamily housing rental for low-income buyers or low-income renters, low-income families, and move away from these large home buyers for lower-income families. At any rate, those are some of my comments. I would like to see the benchmarking situation addressed. I would like to see, or I would encourage the city to understand how they're going to grandfather in applications to create a pipeline. Where is the city going to implement this? There are many projects that are looking at land right now or in due diligence. Are they going to be, you know, allowed to develop under the old rules or under the current rules? So at least those are some of my comments. Thank you.
Dennis, thank you very much. We will definitely be taking your feedback into consideration. And I should mention that, you know, we're nowhere near making a recommendation for B, the one that has low income in it. And we're still thinking about alternative A, the lower moderate. So thank you. I will continue to open it up for any additional questions, comments, feedback that the team should have.
So Rebecca, some feedback and then some questions. First, to echo Dennis, because I think it's imperative to say at the beginning, is thank you, Morgan Hill, for meeting your RHNA goals, since nobody else does. So let's start with saying thank you for actually building the housing you're supposed to build, and I think meeting your affordable numbers. The other thing that I really wanted to emphasize that Dennis made a point of is the comparable cities. The comparable cities in the Kaiser Marston report are not comparable cities, not from a housing industry perspective. We don't look at projects in Mountain View and projects in Morgan Hill the same. They're not. They're very different supply restrictions. They're very different demand requirements. It's not apples and apples to look at those cities and somehow not look at Gilroy, Hollister, Marina, Pleasanton, the places that Dennis suggested, because markets aren't driven by county boundaries. So just because you're in Santa Clara County doesn't mean you're a comparable city. On your presentation and the report, the first was you talked about the council direction. When was the council direction given on this?
So this would be, for the past couple of years, well, let me back up and say that when we had RDCS, the Residential Development Growth Control System, we actually did ask for low income. Obviously, that was a different structure where the developers could voluntarily agree to commit to deeper affordability. Low income was one of those options. So ironically, this isn't something entirely new to the city. The percentage of low income was, I think, 8%, and it varied over, the past 30 plus years. But so anyway, RDCS ended, that went away. Inclusionary housing ordinance came forward. It came forward as moderate only for ownership. And then for the past couple of years, council has made comments, and I apologize, I don't have the exact dates of every time they've made this comment, but how come we can't offer, low income units? These prices still seem really expensive for affordable, what should be considered affordable homes. And so we didn't really do anything with that feedback for a couple years until the December 2nd, 2020 workshop, where we presented it to council as an option to take it into further consideration. And if they wanted to direct us to do so, we would then go work with Kaiser Marston and do an analysis. So it's been a conversation going on for a couple of years. We've just finally decided.
Okay, but it was discussed specifically at a December 2nd workshop. And is there archive video of that workshop that we can go back and see?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I can send you a link in the report. Yep. Okay.
And so then I guess the follow-up question, and I will ask this of you as staff, and it may or may not have been articulated by the council. What exactly is the public policy good to remove people from the program? Because right now, if I go to sell a house, you can make up to 120. So you can make anywhere in the 80 to 120 range. So if you make 100% of AMI, you can buy one of my moderate townhouses, say, for example. This would make it so that everybody that potentially, depending on how you do the stratification, you're taking away the ability for some of those people that today can buy, won't be able to if they don't fit the strata that you land in. So I'm trying to understand, I hear the deepening affordability, but today, somebody that makes 90% of AMI can get in line with everybody else that makes up to 120 to buy the moderate restricted home. So I'm just trying to understand why taking people out of the equation is a good thing.
I may ask Deb or Julius to hop in here. I see it more as, if we were to move with recommendation A, it would be adding folks that are currently not part of the equation.
No, I don't think you're adding anybody. I think you're throwing people out. I think today, under your current plan, if somebody was marketing a for sale townhouse at 120% of the 651 price point for I think that's the 3-bedroom, right? They can sell that to anybody that's 120 or below. You don't have to be at 120. You just have to be below the 120. And I think what you're recommending is some of those units, if this was to take place, could not be purchased by somebody making 120.
Rebecca, I'm happy to jump in here. So what under this program, the way it would work is that right now for people under your example that are earning 90% of AMI and they're buying a house that's priced at 120, they have to have a much higher down payment, or they have to have they're overburdened and they couldn't qualify with regular underwriting for that home without having a much higher down payment. So it's hard for somebody at 90% AMI that's earning 90% AMI to buy a house that's priced at 120. You're pricing at the top of the strata of the income. So it's really a very small percentage of households that can qualify at that price. So the intent was to expand it. And so for houses that are priced at 90% of AMI, the idea is that that the people that would have first dibs at those are households that are earning up to 100% of AMI would have the first dibs on those houses. And then if you couldn't find people within that earning up to 100% AMI to buy those homes, then it would be opened up to people earning up to 120. And the prices that are priced at 110% AMI, those would be targeted to households earning between 100 and 120% AMI. So there wouldn't be anybody excluded, but it's expanding it because households that earn, less than 115 or 110 right now, really probably are very few households that are buying the houses priced at 120. So, but there wouldn't be any limits. Again, on those prices, those homes that are priced at 90%, if there aren't buyers that are available in the target of up to 100% AMI, it would be opened up to households earning more.
Okay, I understand the answer, but again, let's say there were 10 houses sold in Morgan Hill this coming year at 120. My guess is all 10 of them are going to find buyers, right? And so if you then put this in place, those 10 people that were able to buy a home, half of them aren't going to have that opportunity because you're going to say, sorry, you make too much. It's more important to get somebody at 90% than it is to get the 10 of you that are at 120.
Well, they may be able, those prices are fairly high that some of those people probably can afford some market rate product, older existing homes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just they're priced at the very high, and it's just expanding it so that people that don't earn 120%, households that don't earn 120, that there is some opportunity for them as well. I mean, this is just the direction. If the council wants to expand home buyership opportunities for households that earn less than 120, this is a vehicle for doing that. If they don't care about that, then, and if they're happy with the existing structure of pricing it at 120, which is at the very top limit, then they will go forward with that.
Gotcha. So the next question gets into the report. First of all, there's a whole bunch of stratifications of moderate, lower moderate, medium moderate. Are those HCD stratifications or those stratifications that were created for purposes of this report?
They're created for this report, but just to go back to HCD, what is standard practice for many communities is that for moderate income housing, it's not priced at 120. Its standard is that moderate would be priced no more at 110. And so Morgan Hill's program at 120 is higher than what the standard is with respect to HCD. And if you look at the Health and Safety Code, when they calculate what the maximum housing cost for moderate income, it's typically 35% of 110% AMI.
Okay. So then next, one of the things you said in the report is that economics are so different for attached versus detached. I think that's making the assumption that you're buying the dirt for the same price, and nobody's selling land for detached housing. Nobody's selling a home builder land on a per acre basis for detached housing at the same price they're selling for attached housing, because everybody understands how to run a pro forma. So I think it's just a fundamental error to suggest that because the houses are selling for more, that somehow there's more profitability. In fact, what there is more profitability of the landowner or the developer that did the speculative work to get something entitled. So just from a a developer's perspective, it's not necessarily more profitable just because you're selling the houses for more money. And then, to echo Dennis' comment about 10%, 10% is not a norm for builder profitability. I just think that's an error in the assumptions. And then the only other one I saw, there was a reference to the attached, like the moderate restricted attached housing actually making a profit. And then there was an analysis about less profit under the new proposals. As Rebecca knows, I'm currently underwriting under the current program. We're not making money on the deed restricted moderate townhouses. So I'm not sure how I'd love to know how you did that, because I'd love to make money on those. But at least for the project we're underwriting right now at Brookfield, we're not seeing a profit. It's a cost of the project. I'm not complaining about it, but I'm just saying from a modeling perspective, we're not seeing any kind of significant profitability on the units that have the 120 deed restrictions on them.
But we didn't show a profit for those either. It was just for the combination with you have market rate units plus the affordable, that those projects in some cases are still overall generating a profit.
Okay, then I was not following accurately
Okay.
what you were saying. I thought it was saying that the moderate were making a profit and they were making less profit under the new proposal.
And then regarding the difference in the economics, it's just that with the attached, a 3-bedroom affordable attached unit has exactly the same price under the inclusionary requirements. So a 3-bedroom, 1,600 square foot unit can sell for the same price as a 3-bedroom, 3,000 square foot unit.
So, and this is the instance where
That's the problem. I mean, it's a big problem in terms of providing the inclusionary for a large detached projects. It's difficult.
Well, but again, this is your math is right, but you don't understand how sales transactions happen in the housing market. The real estate brokers that represent sellers when we're out buying land, you look at Borello, all those projects you did, Borello Estates, all those had brokers representing or developers representing the sale to the home builder. They run the pro forma with that number in it already. So yes, the differential between how much you make on the deed restricted versus how much you make on the non-deed restricted, your math is right, but that's already plugged into the land value for what we are expected to pay for that. So that's really a function of how much does somebody get.
Well, but the price of the land, the large detached projects are not providing, typically they're paying in lieu fees instead of providing on-site construction.
It's a separate issue, and I'm not going to debate you on that one.
The
issue whether you should charge fees or not.
It gets into economics of it, and then also I understand, the land values when you have higher density that they're different. The land values are different, but that wasn't. We have addressed that in terms of the approach of looking at profit margins, but in that they were normalized that way. But I'm happy to look at different profit margins because I agree that they can be different. But it's just that the analysis just look at the differential between the pricing for an affordable unit with its detached versus market rate, and that price is much closer. And so therefore, often the attached projects are able to provide inclusionary units more readily than the large detached projects have.
Yeah, understand it. I would not ask the question of what's the public policy good of having a higher end lieu fee for detached. I understand. I understand why.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Joe. We're a small group here today, so if anyone else wants to chime in, please feel free to do so, including members of the team. Okay, Christy, if you could just, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, took too long.
That's all right.
I was just gonna chime in just real quickly on what some of the problems are. So we've got 3,500 to 4,000 people in the system. And right now, what we're finding is the majority of the applicants that are signing up for the program ahead of the new construction project coming online are falling within these lower income categories. And so the reason why that's the case is because in 2012, the median income in Santa Clara County was 105,000. And so if you were a moderate income household in 2012, you earned 126,000. Today, that's only 9,000 shy of qualifying you as a low income household in 2021 numbers. So basically, a moderate income household in 2012 is by effect a low income household in 2021. And the incomes, if you look at the historical incomes of applicants, they're not tracking to the increases in the average applicant that's applying for the program is not tracking their income to go up that aggressively, 50% basically in that 9-year period. And so more and more applicants are falling within the close to low to maybe a little bit above low. Like I said, you're probably looking at a little bit above low. So some of the impetus, I think, or the concern that is coming from sort of the housing element of this or housing part of this is that limits have gone up so high that they're throwing more households into that low income category. Just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Julius. And you're also reminding me that another reason this conversation started because, Leslie, when she was here, was concerned that the sales prices at 120% AMI were just too darn close to the moderate. And so, she really wanted to get that down a little bit. So to 110% AMI. That was another.
Yeah, and a little bit of that comes from the fact that when we did this back in 2008 and 2009, the market was kind of doing the same thing, right? It was very high. We had a lot of moderate incomes. We used down payment assistance to close the gap. And then when the market collapsed, we literally had BMRs that were above the price of the market rate units for a significant amount of time to where people were losing homes. We had to lose homes from the program for 2, 3, 4 years while the market started to rebound. So as these prices start to push higher, that's still in the back of everybody's head that, hey, if somebody buys at 7 and the market's saying it's worth 1, but the market turns around and says that same home is worth 8 or worth the same price or worth slightly below, and this person signed up a 45-year agreement, are they in now for a 45-year agreement on a 30-year mortgage and close to being upside down based on that factor? So that's some of the concern too. Like it's still kind of in the back of our heads. I get the market is what the market is, but the market can turn on a dime, as we know. And so that becomes a challenge if somebody's signing a long-term agreement into a uncertain market.
Thank you, Julius. Christy, if you could put up the slide. So just to kind of summarize some of the things that I heard from the development community, and thank you all so much for being here. But we have a need for including comparable cities like Hollister, Pleasanton, Marina, Gilroy markets. The markets we've included are not close enough to what we're currently at. A 10% profit is a low assumption. Alternative B feels very out of the question from your perspective. It could disrupt current projects entirely. Nobody is selling land for detached and attached at the same sales price. From a modeling perspective, not a significant profit is being made on the existing 120% AMI. Questions and concerns about grandfathering in existing projects. So those are just some of the things I heard you say. If you could go to the slide after Q&A, Christy. So our next.
Rebecca.
Yes.
I'm sorry, one, because I want to go back. Dennis mentioned it and you mentioned it, but I want to be really explicit with one of the feedback issues, and that's pipeline exemptions. I want to use that exact terminology because I appreciate that SB 330 stops you from being able to do this to people. But my question isn't, what are you stopped from doing? My question is, as this goes forward, what is staff's feeling about talking about pipeline exemptions? Because again, depending on how far somebody is through the process, as far as already having zoning, already having general plan, whatever the case may be, and having something switch to this significance versus somebody who hasn't bought a piece of land yet and can factor it into their pro forma, then it comes out of the land seller's, value, not out of somebody's ability to make money in town. So I do want to ask very explicitly the term pipeline exemptions be part of the conversation, because I do think it's something that really makes a huge difference on how the development industry is going to respond to this. Is it something we're planning for the next time we look at buying something in Morgan Hill, or is it something that's going to impact something that we've already underwritten and are trying to move forward?
Planning versus something that's already been underwritten.
Yep.
Pipeline exemptions. Got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, so we'll take the feedback here today into consideration. We're not at a point where we're ready to make any kind of formal recommendation, except I'm comfortable saying we're not going to recommend option B. Not even Kaiser Marston recommends option B, so I'm not comfortable doing that. We're going to daylight this information again at the Planning Commission on June 8th. You have an opportunity to comment there as well. It's just being daylighted as an informational item at that point. We're not asking them for a formal recommendation at that time. In order to go before council with the formal recommendation, we would need the Planning Commission's formal recommendation. We're still figuring out a date of what that looks like. We need some time to kind of go back to the drawing board and take all of this into consideration. So I'll make sure I keep you all informed. But one possibility is we're going to the Planning Commission June 8th, definitely as an informational item only. They'll hear the same stuff you heard today. We hope to go to City Council to close this up August, September. But again, have to go to Planning Commission before August or September. Council is out in July, so it's possible we could go to the Planning Commission June 22nd if staff feels comfortable arriving to a conclusion. We're still working on calendaring. So again, I'll keep you all in the loop. Next slide. Okay, I also wanted to just take a quick opportunity to let you know, we have some housing engagement opportunities. They've already started. 5:30 p.m. for workshops, all things housing. That one's recorded and on our Housing Conversation website. The next one is state mandates for housing production, June 2nd, housing affordability, June 16th, housing and long-term sustainability, June 23rd. Again, all virtual and all will be recorded on our Housing Conversation website. And then because it's Affordable Housing Month hosted by SV at Home and so many other partners, House Keys in the city, many cities, there's lots of different opportunities to talk about affordable housing. And we have several. All of these are listed on our Housing Conversation website. Thank you all very much for being with us here today. And that concludes. We will have this same exact conversation at 5 o'clock today with less technical difficulties.